Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ryan Lamar, the host of the Youth Leaders in Wealth Management podcast. And today I'm so excited to be joined by John Askin, a financial advisor at Allied Wealth Partners and an alumni of Monmouth University. So, John, thank you so much for coming on. And how are you doing
Ryan,
today?
thanks for having me, Ryan. I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to get going on this.
Yeah, I'm super happy to have you on here. And we were talking a little bit before we were recording about how much wisdom someone like yourself, a few years ahead of me in your shoes can really share with someone that's in college right now. So I kind of just wanted to open up the conversation with asking you what made you want to get into the wealth management industry?
Yeah, so kind of take you back on a little ride of when I started and thought about this was my sophomore year of college, when I got an internship, and I know we talked before that you had an internship as well in the field, and didn't really know what to expect, honestly. Always was good with people, wanted to be in like a sales type role, which was client facing, didn't want to be behind a desk, so like accounting was not my calling at all. And interned at a firm. It was actually an insurance firm, Mass Mutual, and loved it to the point of like, all right, this could possibly be something that I wanted to do. And then, naturally you go to about your junior year and you're not really thinking too much about, full-time career. And did the same thing again where I interned in this field, and kind of just built on what happened my previous year and continued to like it. I got to see more client facing side of things because some of the internships, my first year when I started was like, all right, what is the industry? It was a lot of education, but you weren't really applying it at all. And then my junior year, I got to apply that and, got to sit in on meetings with the senior advisors. And I was like, all right, I can do personal finance, which was always a passion of mine. I was always the person that was doing a budget in college when most kids were not, because it was just my thing. And I gravitated towards it, but I realized I could have an impact on people. I could sit in front of clients all day long. I could pretty much own my own business at a certain point, and I didn't have to really be tied to that corporate, ladder that most people do in finance, where it's you go in investment banking or if it's wealth management in a wirehouse, something like that. Um, and then it's also the fact that I was a former athlete. Of a lot of people in this industry are former athletes, and because there's a lot of similarities to sports, it's a tough industry to get into. The fail out rate is, depending on who you talk to, 90, 95%, whatever the number is. It's extremely high, so there's a lot of adversity you face, and I kind of wanted a challenge. I think, being young, I was like, I can fail early and it won't be as impactful as if I was 40 years old with a wife and kids. Um, so, kind of fast forwarding to my senior year, I applied to a bunch of firms, and Allied Wealth Partners, the firm I've been with now for over 2 years, was the one I hit it off the most with, mainly because they had an independent way of doing business where you weren't tied to a certain company and had to sell their products or anything like that. So I liked the open architecture. The leadership there was phenomenal. The training was great because I think training is so important, as a young advisor getting into this field. And ultimately, 2 years later, here I am. And thankfully, I can say I've been very successful up to this point. I didn't think I would be where I am now as quickly. If you told me where I was, 2 years ago when I took the role, I thought it would definitely be a little slower, and not that it's not hard, but I wouldn't be at this point in my career, and I couldn't be happier. So that kind of gives you an idea of where, I gravitated towards this industry, and, it's been the best decision I've made. I absolutely love it. I love the clients I get to work with, the way that I can help people on a daily basis. So yeah, that's kind of where my story into this field and why I pursued the career I did.
Yeah, it seems like you made a decision that fit well with your values and interests. Someone that's budgeting in college, conscious of their spending and their income, as well as someone has an importance on relationships, like you said. And then getting an experience where you get to actually see what it's like to be in these type of meetings in college through your internship. It's just kind of sparked that same type of interest that it sparked in me, being able to really have a meaningful impact on not only others but on your own life, in the sense that you can build up a business and freedom, which is something very important to me, and it seems like that's important to you as well.
Absolutely. I mean, you said something there that's key, and I didn't even mention it was, the freedom of, one of the things that someone said to me, a senior advisor at Allied Wealth Partners, and, he sat down and he's like, listen, I have never missed a kid's soccer game, a graduation, a family event for work. And that to me is worth more than money. Well, the money's great in this industry and you can do extremely well. It's the time freedom that you have of, you don't have to work that traditional 9 to 5. I will say that there is nights where I've worked until 10 o'clock at night, and that, it's not that it's easy, but it's that you can create your own schedule and you have the freedom to do so. You can work as hard as you want, or you can work not as hard as you want, and it kind of dictates your results. But that type of stuff, thinking long term, I'm young now, so I'm 24 years old. I won't hide from that. But in 10 years, I plan to have a wife, family, kids, a house. And, I don't want to have to say, like, I can't make my kid's soccer game or dance recital or whatever it is because of work. I want to be able to say, no, I'll never miss one of those because I grinded when I was younger to build that up so that I could, afford to do that type of stuff. And that's another important thing thinking about getting into this industry is you really get to create your own destiny at this point. No, it's no one else's fault or anything else other than you, right? It's on you completely. And that's the tough part, but also the rewarding part of it. So just kind of wanted to add some color there as well from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you hit something really important there on the aspect of family. I think this is very much a family-oriented business. You're helping families. You're able to be an active member of your family, which is something so important to me. I remember thinking about going into things like investment banking and private equity, or some of these other financial careers that schools were pushing their students to go towards. And those are great careers if that's what you're interested in. No problem to them. But for me, the idea of working those 80, 90, 100-hour weeks on a regular basis, not being able to see my family just for money, just didn't really fit well with my values. I wanted to have that opportunity where I didn't have to miss any sports games or graduations. Like you said, it's so important. And this business is an opportunity that you can do well and still be an active part of your family and help other families really build up their goals and dreams and succeed in the way that they want to, which is so important.
Absolutely.
And you hit on something as well that I can relate to. I was a wrestler in high school, and it's very much an individualized sport, right?
Yeah.
You said that you're an athlete. What sport did you play?
I played soccer, so I played all the
Mhm.
way through college. So I did play at Monmouth University as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, athletics is something that I can't imagine going through. So much hard work and teaches you so much about yourself to be able to really commit to something like that while you're getting an education as well. But any sport really shows you how to work in a team, right? And even something like wrestling, we had team competition, team aspects to it. But there's all at the end of the day, it always comes down to individual performance and effort. Like, how well am I performing? How hard am I working? And that's going to, indicate how well I perform on the field. And in
Yeah.
wrestling, it was very much individual success in the sense that if I walked onto the mat and I won, it's my fault. And if I lost, it's my fault. You can't blame it on anybody else. You can't
Hmm.
hide on someone else's mistakes. And I think that that's even in team sports, you can kind of have that mindset.
Yeah.
And financial advisory seems to have a very similar way that your success can be dictated by yourself and no one else. And that's something that's so important when it comes to the aspect of freedom, that if you are truly want to take the destiny into your own hands, I didn't want anybody to be responsible for my own success but myself. And this is a great opportunity to do so.
Yeah. And just to kind of add to that, I think that, you know, there's a twofold approach to getting into this career. You want to get into it because yes, you can control your own success, but I want to make like a distinction of you're not going to get to where you want to be by doing it alone. I'm not where I am in my career just because of who I am. Yes, I can look at the mirror every night and say, did I do everything I could possibly do with the opportunity I was given? That's totally on you. But also, there's a whole support team that if you go to a firm that you need to lean on. My firm specifically, I will put it up against anyone because I'm biased, but I have my manager who has, done phenomenal things for me. His name's Dan. And, he's pretty much been the reason why I've been so successful because he's built a good culture in our office, where everyone, it's kind of, different than most offices, I would say. I know we have like 20 plus advisors in our place in Manasquan on the Jersey Shore. And any given day, there's probably a good 15 advisors in the actual office, where we're going out to lunch together, we're hanging out, that makes the tough days easier when you can get along with everyone. And he's built a team around himself, and then also my partner, Steve, who I work very closely with. The three of us have, been able to lean on each other and work together. And there's no way I'd be where I am in my career without them. So while it is a very, look in the mirror and say, what did I do today to get better? And I can't blame anyone but myself. If you try to do it all yourself, you will fail. You will fail in this industry. You can't do it alone. So I want to make that distinction of, don't just get in this industry to try to be like that solopreneur of like, I'm going to do it alone and by myself. You're going to go further together. You might go, the saying of you can go faster by yourself, but you can go further with others and together. It rings true in this industry. And I think that's why you said, like, in wrestling, I don't pretend to know wrestling too well, but I know it enough, I guess, where you go out, you have your match against the person, but at the end of the day, it's like you have your team aspect where if you all perform well as a team, some guys may win, some guys may lose, but ultimately at the end of the day, you're trying to win for the name on the front of your shirt, not the back. Um, and I think that rings true in most sports, as well as in this career, because like I said, I can't say it enough that you need to have other people around you to help you and lean on, especially in a career like this. When you go into it, you need to lean on the veterans who actually understand and have done it, and have made the mistakes that you might make, so that, you can prevent yourself from doing the same thing they did. So that's kind of something to add on top of that I think is really important.
Yeah, I totally see how that'd be true about the team aspect of things. I completely agree. I wanted to ask you now about your experience in college, and how did your college prepare you to come out into the workforce? Do you feel like you were helped on like an internship side, career development side, or do you feel like you took that more into your own hands?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it was a combination. It wasn't, one or the other. I think that Monmouth University specifically, I went there to play soccer and also get a good education. Monmouth's a pretty good school. I'm not going to say it's an Ivy League education. I love it. It has great culture and connections. I think that the career development side was very good as far as, getting you prepared for interviews and building a resume and all that stuff that you need to do to create yourself and be marketable. Because if you can't market yourself, you won't get hired, right? We have to be able to sell ourselves to someone and show why we're the best candidate. But I also think that for anyone who's in college right now, don't assume that your career development or advisor, whatever you want to call it, is going to get the job for you. They might be able to open up some doors potentially, or show you like, hey, you might find an interest in this career versus this career, right? Whether it's investment banking versus wealth management, helping you understand the difference between the two. Because when you're a college kid, it's tough to comprehend that. You don't really know what an advisor is unless you interned in that field, or, you have someone, a family member that did it. So I'm where I am today because of a personal connection I had. I have a very close family friend of ours who worked at this firm. It was called Langdon Ford at the time, not Allied Wealth Partners, back in the early 2000s, and he left to do his own thing. But he introduced me to Allied Wealth Partners and said, I believe this would be a great fit. They have phenomenal training. And that was a personal connection I had. But I would have never known if I didn't speak up and talk to him, because I honestly didn't really know what he did. And I reached out to him and said, hey, listen, I'm looking at this career. You have any advice? And he said, oh, I can introduce you to like 3 or 4 firms, get you the interview. And I was extremely happy. So, I think that goes back to, your college is going to prepare you in the sense of making sure that you're ready to present yourself well, and have the foundation as far as communication skills and being professional and being on time for things, and time management. But at the same time, it does come down to you. And the biggest, I guess, advice I can give someone looking back is reach out to people. We're talking now because you reached out to me. However the LinkedIn algorithm worked, I showed up on your feed, or you found me, whatever happened, you took a chance and reached out. And I'm sure there's people that tell you no, but I said yes. And for whatever reason, now we're talking. And that's the only way that things are going to get done, especially when you're in college, of looking for interviews, especially in this career. I know from our recruiting standpoint, you need to reach out and be proactive. They're not necessarily going to go find you. You need to go find them, find out who the people in charge are at the firm, who's the recruiter, who's the managing directors, like find all that out and be proactive. And for, every nine that are going to reject you, there's going to be that one that's going to be take a chance on you and you're going to have the interview. And who knows, you might be the person now talking to Ryan in 3 years, talking about your experience of you listened to this podcast and you took action. So that's kind of what I would say as far as my college experience was, having the raw skills as far as like I talked about communication, professionalism, all that stuff they taught us, but they didn't necessarily get me the job unless I went out and looked for it and took action on my own. They're not just going to come with a silver platter. And I'd be weary of anyone that says that they would do that. So that's kind of what I'd have to say as far as my experience and what kind of led me ultimately to be where I am today.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like networking was huge for you. Your personal network was able to provide you with an opportunity. And I think those are great. Everyone should take advantage of their personal network to the most extent that they can. That's what you have built in. But for someone like myself, like I didn't have a great network within the wealth management industry at all. Like
Mhm.
my mother was is a teacher, my dad was a police officer, nothing in finance. So I really had to go out on my own and find how do I build my network? How do I find these opportunities to really get my name out there, get in the industry? And that's why networking is so important. Like you said, I reach out to you to see if you wanted to come on the podcast. And there's plenty of people that say no, they don't answer or, tell me to kick rocks. But there's great people like you that are willing to have a conversation, right? And especially when you're just a student looking to learn about a career, people are very, very interested in giving back. Anyone that you want to spend your time with at all and would be helpful will be interested in giving back. For someone that doesn't answer, that's not an opportunity that you were supposed to get anyway, is how I feel.
I absolutely
So,
agree with that. I couldn't agree
yeah.
more that, everything happens for a reason and, you just have to keep going because if you, especially for someone in college, right? If you're able to reach out to 100 people and continue and be persistent, politely persistent is how we say it of, I'm just following up, I wonder if you want to come on the podcast, whatever it is, or I'm looking for an interview, build a personal connection first and then kind of look for the ask. And if you can do that well, when you're in college, I'd say you're probably a pretty good fit for this industry because you understand like, wait, I just got rejected when I was in college when I was trying to find an interview. That's going to apply to when I'm actually looking for clients and, people are going to say no. And then there's going to be the people that say yes. So if you look in the mirror and say, all right, that's kind of like me and I can handle that, I think that this is a good career path to pursue for that reason, because it's like I said, it's definitely hard, but if you're persistent and you have that driven mindset, you can do very well. And I've seen it, not only in the people I work with, but also the people that have been at my firm for, 30, 35 years and saying they started out of college. So yeah, you're absolutely right on that aspect.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I wanted to ask you now about niches in the wealth management industry. So,
Hmm.
just taking a look at your profile on LinkedIn, there's obviously a niche built in for what the type of client that you're looking for. So, what are
Yeah.
the pros and cons of having a niche in this industry?
Yeah. I mean, so when I first got in the industry and to kind of set the stage for why I chose the niche I did, you're not going to want to find it right away. I think it can be a little bit dangerous because when you get in the field, you're new, you're not an expert in anything. I think that you need to kind of get your foundation set of finding clients as quickly as possible to make sure that you don't fail out of the industry, right? That's important. So I didn't come out of college and start at my firm having necessarily like a target market. You have your natural market, which is the people around you and aunts, uncles, and stuff. And obviously, depending on the firm, you target them. Our firm did a good job of basically getting people to know what we do, not necessarily that they have to buy something from us or become a client. And that just naturally branched off, and naturally people say yes. So that's where I started, and then. I worked some lead programs with guys that I work with, which is we've done very, very well on. And I know people will say lead programs stink or they're great. whatever, that worked for us. And I built it up that way. But then I sat down about a year and a half in and I said, okay, I've built up a base where I'm not necessarily worried about failing out of the industry. I kind of want to solidify myself as an expert, right? What is a financial advisor can mean so many different things to so many people, right? Oh, like they manage my investments, or they're an insurance specialist, or they're a financial planner. Like that can mean so many different things. And you're basically a generalist. And if you think of it like a doctor, you go and see your primary care physician, but the people that are paid the most are the specialists. They refer you to the cardiologist, the brain surgeons, the neurologists, whatever you want to refer to it as. The specialists are the ones that are the expert in what they do, and they've narrowed it down. So going through coaching, and I've bought tons of courses and worked with people in the industry. And the resounding message was you need to become an expert in something for someone. And my personal story was, like I said, I was an athlete in college, and I tore my ACL my sophomore year. It was the day before we were going to play a top ranked West Virginia team at home. It was about a day or two, I forget the exact date, before my birthday. So it was a big moment for me. I was going to be probably starting in the game and everything, and I went to go make a cut and tore my ACL. Long story short, that was a big moment of adversity for me, and really didn't think anything of it. Now looking back, I'm like, I just tore my ACL. Like, it was devastating. I couldn't play that year. And I got really close with my PTs that I worked with. And that was sophomore year. So like I said, I interned, but I didn't really know what I was going to do in the field. And then transitioned 3 years later, I said, you know what, let me reach out to the PTs that I talked to and see what this is all about. And lo and behold, the guy ended up becoming a client. I wasn't really intending on that, kind of just wanted to talk to him about what their concerns were, what their challenges were financially. And I saw that there was a market there that I could not only talk to because I understood the way that they work, they operated. I've been a patient before. And I noticed that they lacked a lot of financial education in their, college years, their graduate years, whatever it is, their residency. And so I said, you know what, let me try this out. I tried it out and I realized that it got some traction. I've now onboarded a bunch of clients in that field just from targeting them. But kind of back to your original question, because I always like to set the stage of how I got there and why I chose my niche, because I think for everyone that's looking to get into the industry, there's going to be a moment where you're going to want to figure out yours, whether it's doctors or small business owners, or I've seen things as specific like, construction workers in the North Carolina region. It's super targeted because then people don't have to think about who you help, how you help them, and what you do. That's ultimately what a niche does. And I think, kind of to transition into the pros of having a niche, your marketing is more targeted. Because if you think about every business in the world, let's, use Apple. Apple doesn't go and try to sell food to people, or, they sell what they sell. They're really good at making phones, iPads, and computers. That's their market and what they're really good at. And another business is completely different. Like in the PT business, they're not trying to sell iPhones to people. They're trying to sell people that are injured, right? That's their target market. With advisors, it's like we don't get taught that. We get kind of told like, yeah, you just need to onboard clients and help them with their financial planning. But then when you're trying to market to people, who are you targeting? Are you targeting retirees? Are you targeting young entrepreneurs? Are you targeting W-2 employees? I mean, there's so many options that you can get lost. So I think that having a niche helps you to narrow in on who you want to serve, what their problems are, and how you can help them. So then everything I do, it's okay, how does this help the PT business owner or entrepreneurial mindseted PT, with their financial planning? And I can target, their problems because I know them and I become a, professional that works with them. I've been able to market everything that I do towards them and exclude everyone else. It almost creates this exclusivity to you of like, you can start to turn people away because no, I only work with these types of people and I specialize in it. And then it's like a snowball effect of, once you start working with them, you start to understand their concerns better. You can speak their language better. And that just compounds on top of each other, where to the 25th prospect that you're in front of, you're like, here's what your concerns are. Here's how I can help you. And here's what it costs. And they're like, great. sounds good. You know my stuff, and I don't want to work with anyone else. Um, Another pro on that is you differentiate yourself from every other advisor out there. If you, let's say, Ryan, you and I are both talking to a physical therapist prospect, I can almost guarantee, unless you're a family friend or a close relative or whatever it is, that I will be able to win the business over you because I am a specialist in that field, and vice versa. If you targeted, former wrestlers or whatever it is, right? You would be able to win them over better than me because you can speak their language, you understand them, and you understand their problems better than I do. And that's ultimately what you're trying to look for in a niche, is be that go-to person for the people that you're looking to target. And then it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I would talk about the cons. I kind of hit on it at first of you can sometimes try to have a niche too early, where if you don't have enough money coming in the door to pay your bills, your mortgage, whatever, utility, all that stuff, it can become tough because you don't have that revenue coming in at first to where you can afford to target a certain people and exclude everyone else. So I would caution against finding a niche too early in your career. But start thinking about it once you get in. Like, all right, who do I like to work with? Who, maybe look at my book of business like 6 months in, who are the clients that I'm working with, and then start to figure it out. The other thing is it takes time. You can't just, you're not just going to show up, for example, let's say you work with dentists. There's not going to be a line out the door of dentists looking to work for you just because you changed your LinkedIn profile to I help dentists with their financial planning. Um, and I learned that lesson the hard way. I kind of was naive when I picked it. I'm like, oh, PTs are going to be lining up and owners are going to want to talk to me and this, that, and the other. And no, it doesn't happen. They pretty much were skeptical and said, all right, talk to me in 6 months to make sure that you're still around. So that's another thing of, you need to continue to, refine your process and the niche and become an expert and be around enough for people to say, okay, he's still around, I can trust him. So that's the other thing, is you have to play a long game with it. It's not going to happen overnight. I'm not where I want to be. My goal for myself is to be every physical therapist that thinks about starting a business or has a business and wants to retire. I want to be the person that they call. That's my mission statement of, like, 30 years from now or 20 years from now, whatever the time frame is, they're calling John because he's the person that they know they can help them, and no one else does it better. That's really my goal. Whether I get there or not, we'll see. But that's really the vision I have for that. And I think that a lot of people that are looking to get in this industry, you would help people better by having a niche. And I truly believe in it. And I think there's a lot of advisors that are starting to see that as well.
Yeah, yeah, it really looks like to me that the niche model is taking off. I see it so much on LinkedIn of people that have different niches and different natural markets. I mean, there's so much wisdom to unpack niches there. But I think it's really important to figure out who you can best suit, right? So your experience with tearing your ACL, which is terrible, by the way. I'm sorry that that happened to
Yeah,
you.
it's all good. Listen, I actually am look at it as a blessing now. In the moment I hated it, but yeah, it's weird to say, but it's one of the best things that's happened to me because I think it's changed my perspective on a lot of stuff. So that's
Yeah.
something that comes down the line when if anyone's been through that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a lot of those really hard situations are make people stronger, right? You can choose to learn from it, but you see the positives that's come from. You really understood PTs better, and that brings me back to when I like the only real serious injury I ever had was like partially tearing my rotator cuff in high school, and
Mhm.
spending the time with my PT there. Like I remember the same exact situation that you described, like really learning about what the business was, and I was interested in going into that for a little while. So like understanding how those type of people think, what their responsibilities are, what their concerns are, really can help you better serve a market, especially in a marketplace where the better and more focused that you can be, the more people are going to want to talk to you, right? Having a PT niche will make you so much more marketable to those specific people that have those specific problems. And something that I think is definitely where the industry is heading, that specialist model in the similar way that the medical industry is going right now,
Yeah.
and has been. And I think it's a great idea, and I'm super happy that you found yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the industry is going that way as well, but I think also there's a ton of opportunity right now because the way that advisors used to do business is changing, right? The days of, a lot of, they're still commission based, and I still think that there needs to be that because there's this fee only movement, and I think that can be a little harmful for the industry, but we won't get into that. But I think that people are realizing, like, I'm looking for someone to do financial planning, not necessarily just handle my investments or be the insurance guy. People are looking for almost like a guide for their situation, and they're willing to pay for it. And it wasn't that way, I'd say 20, 30 years ago from advisors I talked to. It's very different. And I think that's a good thing, but it's also a lot of opportunity where for younger advisors that are listening to this, or for people still in college thinking about going into this career, if you can become a specialist in whatever it is that you have a passion for, people are going to see that and gravitate towards you because of that. And then also, if you provide holistic financial planning, you're going to be more successful because then all the other stuff falls in line. If you can give someone a plan, but then also the things that go with part of that plan, and you can provide them with the products and services that go as part of the plan, you're going to do very well. And I've seen that with my clients that I worked with, of naturally things start to fall in place and they start to trust you with their assets or trust you to implement insurance policies with them. Whatever it may be in their picture, you become their go-to person, their one-stop shop. And then also the other thing in our business that's big is referrals. If you're an expert, like I said before, if we're going against a prospect and they're a PT, I'm not only going to probably work with them, but then also they're going to refer me to people they know because they know exactly what I do and who I serve. It makes it easy for them to say, oh, listen, my buddy Ryan, he's a PT as well. You should probably talk to him. Whereas if you don't have a target market and you're like, I'm just an advisor, they might know someone already who's just an advisor at Merrill Lynch or Morgan Stanley or wherever they may be, or Ameriprise, like we talked about before, versus you're really that target person. So again, just kind of talking about the niche, I think it is a really good opportunity for younger advisors to say, okay, this is an industry that's not going away, because it's not. People are still going to value human advice no matter what anyone tells you about AI and automation. I just think it's changing the way that you need to approach the business model and how you serve clients.
Yeah, it's certainly changing. And I tend to agree with you that human advice will still have value, and it may be even a premium compared to what it can be in the future if
Hmm.
artificial intelligence really develops even further than how it is right now, which is definitely possible and more likely than ever. Um, but having a human being able to relate to you on an emotional level is something that computers just won't be able to do. They are computers; they're built with ones and zeros. They don't have emotions and understand problems like we do. So developing a niche just really makes sense today.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you're 2 years out of college now, and obviously there's a lot of career development to still be going, right, and a lot of things to learn. It's a never-ending game. So how do you continue to pursue career development while you're working full time and have these other responsibilities?
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing for younger advisors is there's a ton of things out there as far as knowledge that you can acquire. Like when you first get into this field, you're not an expert. You got licensed and you passed a couple of tests, but you need experience. And I think getting experience is working with clients, getting rejected on all that stuff. You gain experience from that. So like never stop prospecting in that sense because you're going to learn from that. That's just learning in of itself. But outside of that, I think it's important for advisors to look at new ways to do things. Because when I first got in the business, the where I am now as far as focusing more on the financial planning side of things, when I first started, I didn't even know like what financial planning was and if you could charge for it and all that stuff. And I actually paid over $6,000 for a coach. I paid to work with a coach who made a lot of mistakes that I was running into, and he was able to teach me. So I think that looking for mentors and investing in yourself is huge, especially when you're younger. Like I said, to that point of if you're right out of college, you probably don't have a ton of expenses. If you're able to live at home, I highly recommend that. But invest in yourself because yes, you can go invest that in the market and get your 10% rate of return or whatever. But, the investment in yourself, that can be 100-fold. If you paid $6,000 for a coach, but it meant you get, $20,000 of financial planning clients, and then you could just compound on that. That's way more valuable and a way better return than you would have gotten if you just invested in the market, because then you don't have any more skills. You just went and bought some companies or an index or something. Like you're not going to compound on itself. And I think that's really important. The other thing is, as far as professional development, I think it's important to, always know what's going on in the marketplace, whether it's products from, annuities or life insurance, investments. I think it's important to always stay on top of that because products are always changing. Because if you know the best products out there for people, and the best solutions, you're going to be the best advisor because you can bring the solution and know, okay, this is perfect for this person. If you're kind of staying back and you don't want to talk to anyone and you're like, leave me alone, I'm focusing on my stuff, I think you can get left behind. So I think that is important as well. And then also my goal is in with the next year or so is to get my CFP. So that's something that it's going to take a lot of time away from my practice, unfortunately. But I think in the end of the day, being able to have that accreditation behind me, and show people, listen, I am a certified financial planner, which I'm not. I want to make sure that that's, in the recording, it's not saying that I am. But that's my goal, is to have that just to show people, because people look for those types of things in advisors. And same thing with a doctor, right? You go to a doctor, you're looking to see if they're board certified and what their experience is. I think that's important once you get to a certain point in your career to continue educating yourself, and knowing what's going on. Because like I said, if you were the advisor 30 years ago who never changed, you might be doing well, but you're not going to be able to help your clients in the best way possible. There's a saying of, you can live the same year 30 years in a row, or you can live, you can be young and always adapting and live a different year every single year. And that's kind of my goal, is to, be better than I was last year, and maybe even do things differently. Because I learned that there's a better way to do it, or I was taught by a coach, or I took a course and learned from it. So that's kind of what I'm getting to, is, you're never stopping learning after college. And I think that the learning that you're going to get from the on-job experience is going to be so much better than what you are going to learn in college. College is definitely a touchy subject nowadays, because people are like, is it even worth it? It's so expensive. I think once you get into your career, investing in yourself is so important. And I can't reiterate that enough, of always be looking for ways to improve, kind of like an athlete would. You don't just show up every day to game day and didn't practice that entire week. And if you do it that way, you're not going to be successful. So, it definitely is important, and for younger advisors to always to know going into the career, like, it doesn't stop. You don't just stop learning and all of a sudden become an expert. Every day I'm waking up and saying, how can I get better today? And how can I be better for my clients?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me like investing in yourself is more important than just throwing your money into an index, especially at this age. We're trying to compound on our own personal growth to be able to increase what our earning potential is. In reality, like, ourselves are our biggest way to make money, our income. And it's something that people tend to forget about. They think like, oh, I'll just shovel money into the S&P, and there's no like financial advice in this, but it's just like being able to actually invest in yourself seems to be like the way to go, to increase your earning potential, which over time will result in you being able to do the things that you want to do.
Absolutely. And that's the one thing that no one can take away from you. And it can't drop, if you know what I mean. Like, investments can go up and down, right? And we always think over the long term, yes, investments are going to go up, we think. But it's the investment in yourself, of no one can take those skills away from you. So if you have those skills, and those skills allow you to onboard more clients and help more people, that's going to just compound. And then you're going to have the money to invest in, retirement, and, buying a vacation home, or whatever that is long term. But for people that were, talking about younger people in college and thinking about going in this career, you're young, take risks, bet on yourself. There's no better time to do it, because trust me, life gets lifey and quick. I just moved into an apartment. I moved out of my own home at home. I got away from my parents. I'm living on my own. And that's, that was a scary thing for me. It's like, okay, now we got rent due every day, and utilities and groceries and you name it, on top of all my business expenses. So it gets real quick. And I don't think if I invested in myself when I had the opportunity to, that I would regret it, because I was able to take that money that otherwise could have been spent or investment, and invested in myself. And now I know that I'm reaping the rewards of that. Of I have better skills, I'm more informed, and ultimately can help my clients better, which does put more money in your pocket in the end of the day, and helps you become successful as an advisor.
I mean, you said it well. It's an investment in yourself, right? And
Hmm.
an investment pays back over time. And it's a very smart decision that you made, and I'm sure that it will be very fruitful as you progress in your career. And something that I look forward to doing for myself
Absolutely.
once I get into a position like yourself. I wanted to ask you a question about social media and the importance of it. So, how has social media affected your ability to connect with your desired clients and build a reputation for yourself?
Yeah, so social media is huge. I think that the world we live in today is so technology driven, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, you name it. My specific network that I use is LinkedIn because I think I can target my specific client on there the best. I do plan on moving on to X or Twitter, if you want to call it that, because I still call it that sometimes, but and Instagram as well because there's people on there. But I think that if you're not on social media, there's a huge opportunity you're missing out on because there's statistics out there, and I don't know the exact numbers, so don't hold me to it, but like 95% of people on social media are just scrolling and engaging on content, and 5% of people are creating. So those are pretty favorable statistics if you're the 5% that's creating, where people are constantly, looking for things for enjoyment. So I think that for me, it's been able to allow me to not only work with the people that are close to me, but people in all different states all over the country, which 30 years ago, it was tougher to do. You really worked with your community and the people that you knew and referrals. Whereas now, I'm working with clients in California and Florida, Pennsylvania, Missouri, all over the country. And that's all because of social media. The other thing is, I think it compounds on itself where you can reach. It's like that one to many idea of you can put out a piece of content and you don't have to pick up the phone and call 3,000 people to reach them. Whereas with social media, you can create one post and it can reach 10, 20, 30, 100,000 people just from that one post. And I think that compounds your ability to get your name out there, become that professional, target the people you want to target because you can on LinkedIn do that. You're able to target only PTs in your searches and your content and engage with them and allow PTs, for my case, to connect with you. And you can kind of deny everyone else if you want to. You're almost creating this exclusive group on social media. And I think that for younger advisors thinking about getting in this industry, learning the skill of producing content on social media is extremely valuable. And I don't think they really teach it enough in college. It's kind of like, oh, social media is this thing where, you're doom scrolling or whatever people call it, where you're just scrolling for hours and you're not really doing anything. I don't do that. I become the person that I'm looking for people to do that on my content. I want to be able to produce and then kind of get off the platform and do my day. But then knowing that that's working behind the scenes without me actually having to call or email or whatever it is, all those people that I'm trying to target. So I think that especially the younger generation who's tech savvy, learning that skill, if you're still in college, I can encourage you to do it. Or if someone who's starting out in this career, look to have a social media presence. And then the other piece of advice I'll give is don't be the guy on social media that's putting out this canned content about market commentary and what the Fed did. People don't care, they don't care about that. And they're never going to read it, or engage with it. People go on social media to be entertained. So use finance, but make it entertaining. Talk about maybe their problems that they have and how you solve them. Make a video teaching someone about something, or make a post just about what you did that day. I post about golf and, sports and all this stuff. And I think people engage with that a lot more than they do if I posted that the Fed dropped 25 bips yesterday. No one knows or really cares about that. And that's not going to get you new clients because every other advisor can do that. Sell you, who you are, be real with people, because then when they go to have a first meeting with you, one of the most eye-opening things was when I sat there and someone said to me, I feel like I already know you. I never met them before. I don't even know their, last name until I met them, right? And now they feel like they know, like, and trust me because of my content. And I think that's a huge advantage because I've had clients that I've cold called and they've come in and you really have to convince them and have multiple meetings before they're even ready to sign anything and become a client. Whereas I've had clients on the first meeting say, yep, just send me the paperwork and let's get this thing rolling. So social media is a big thing, and it's only going to become bigger, I think. And the more you start now, earlier, when all these other content and people kind of start to finally believe in it, you're going to be so far ahead of the pack that you're going to look back and say, thankfully, I did that so soon in my career.
Yeah, I mean, you sparked two things right there about social media and the importance of developing a brand now. It's we got the famous quote about it's not what you know, it's about who you know, and your net worth is your net worth, or your network is your net worth. But just taking that and even a step further, based on what you said, it's not about what you know or who you know, it's about who knows you. You can create these meaningful relationships with people without even knowing them, just by providing value and truly giving back to the community through your content. And that's something that I try to live by, and making sure that everything that's through the Youth Leaders and Wealth Management organization is giving back in a positive way. And that ties right into the concept of the emotional bank account, making deposits and withdrawals. And it takes a lot of deposits to make an ask for somebody to come in and be a client or give you this or do that. So just making sure that you're constantly giving back is a great way to set yourself apart, especially at the college age, wanting to come into the industry. It's an awesome way to stand out. And it's an awesome way when you're an advisor to really build out a true network of people that are desired in your clients. And you're a great example of what it can be like with consistent use of social media and platforms like LinkedIn to be able to really grow your business and connect with individuals across the country that you would have never been able to connect with if it were without the internet, right? So super important piece on social media there. Thank you for sharing your information. And I wanted to ask, one final question before we wrapped up here about, just thinking about, with a little bit of hindsight that you have from leaving college and having a few years in the industry now, is, what advice would you give to someone who is just starting out in the industry and wants to develop a successful career in wealth management?
Yeah, I think this question, comes up a lot. And, I've heard all these things when I was getting into the industry, and they're all coming from great places. And I get why people say them. But I think that, you need to have a, why behind what you're doing. If someone stopped you on the side of the street and said, what do? You need to be able to say that with conviction and purpose. And if you don't know that at first, that's okay. But I think try really hard to, find out why you gravitated towards this career. For me, it was because, I wanted a challenge, honestly. And I think that I always liked working with people. I wanted to be in a career that worked with people. And I think that's changed over the years. I still enjoy working with people, but I think there's a bigger purpose. I think that get into this industry because you really want to make an impact at the end of the day. Yes, you're going to make good money if you're successful. That's a byproduct. But I think if you come in with, a good heart and you really, really want to make an impact on someone, they're going to see that. People see through, sleazy salesmen and all that stuff. And, eventually those people kind of get what they deserve. And I think that there's a lot of great people in the industry. And I think there's some bad people that have given us a tough reputation. So it's really hard to earn someone's trust. So no matter what it is, stay true to yourself. Don't try to chase the next commission check or payday, because, if you're doing that and you're not doing the right thing for your clients, it can come back to bite you. So I think that let the helping others come first and the money will follow. If you come at this with a place of, I want to help someone send their kids to college, protect their family, retire on their terms, they might not work with you at first, but eventually they will come around and see that you came at it with, a true desire to help people. And I think that the people that do that best in this industry are not only compensated for it, but they're also just feel better about themselves, going to sleep knowing that, like, I protected a family. If they lost their dad, that they're okay, or their mom, that they're okay. Or I was able to show them a way to retire 5 years earlier than they ever thought. That's the most rewarding thing to me. And then, yes, you get paid for doing that, which is an even better feeling. But I think that, don't just get in this industry for the money. I think that can cause the wrong things to, happen. And, your reputation is everything. It's like trust takes years and years and years to build and can be lost in an instant. You want your reputation to last longer, because I'm looking at this as a 40+ year career that I don't really ever have to retire from. So I don't want to make a mistake in my 20s, short-sighted. That's going to affect me from being where I want to be in my 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. And if that means I make a little less money today, but tomorrow can reap those rewards of doing the right thing, I think that's really important. So I think that you need to figure out what it is you want to get in this industry for, and be able to reiterate that to people and have a very strong conviction behind it, because that'll pay off more than whatever you know, or how smart you are, or how good you are in financial planning, modeling, or whatever you want to call it. I think that resonates more with your clients, and that's what they care about, is knowing that when they go to bed every night, that they have someone who's fighting on their behalf, and really wants to help them. So that would be the number one thing that if I could give advice to someone, is figure out your why and run with it. Fight like heck to figure it out. And once you do, you're going to do well. And you're going to be able to reiterate that to your clients.
John, thank you so much for that. I can completely agree with your emphasis on trust and building a reputation. And I think Warren Buffett, excuse me if I'm incorrect, says like it takes 20 years to build a great reputation and 5 minutes to destroy it. It's something that's takes a long time and a lot of effort and deliberate choices to be able to build something like that. And it's so important in an industry like this to have a strong reputation. And you don't want to make a short-sighted decision when you're young that can really have a ripple effect down the road. And especially not one that's chasing dollars today and putting the dollars in the future behind. I'm very much a person that can delay gratification, especially when it comes to a monetary stance. And I think that if you have that same ability to do that, it's an excellent industry that you can be able to keep learning and building that reputation. And along the road, those type of fruits will definitely start to blossom. But yeah, John, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate the conversation and the wisdom that you've bestowed onto all the listeners here today. I know I certainly learned a lot from everything that you said, and I'm super thankful for you coming on.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. I really appreciate it.
It's my